agential belief in different types of control.
Okay, good afternoon. Thank you for having me here. I would like to especially thank the organizations, Anna, Seb, and Raquel. It's been a really great event, so I'm happy to be here. And today I'm going to talk to you a bit about sense of agency. This is my current research in philosophy of action, and I think, or at least I've been seeing some philosophers make some conclusions or draw some conclusions about kinds of control. By kinds of control, I actually mean free will, but I'm going to talk about free will here as if it's a kind of control. I'll adopt John Martin Fisher view about regulative and guidance control. And I think some people are drawing conclusions that I'm going to argue they don't seem to be allowed to draw. There doesn't seem to be good reason to draw the conclusions. So my overview is I'll start telling you about these defenses, these philosophers, and then I'll show that issues about free will can be seen as issues about control. This will be a kind of fast point. Then I'll try to say that sense of agency is associated to action control mechanisms. In particular, I'm thinking about the comparator model. And then I'm going to try to say that sense of agency cannot tell us very much about whether we have free will or not, even though some people seem to be drawing these conclusions. Okay, so first we're going to start with the idea that sense of agency might support claims about free will. So I won't read all of this, but I'll give you an idea of what they're saying. So Martine Revlin, she has this paper in which she claims that we experience ourselves in our doings, and we experience others when we perceive them in their doings as active, in the sense of being a cause of the corresponding physical event. So clearly here she's espousing something similar to an agent causation view. So in philosophy of action, some of you might know that there are different theories that provide us an explanation for our actions. So one view, for instance, will rely more on our mental states to claim that our mental states cause our behavior. So they'll say things like my belief, my desire, and some will include intentions, cause me to act, right? They produce the action. There's a causal explanation of one's action. So some people will espouse these views. Ms. Davidson, for instance, Alfred Milley, Michael Bradman, and others, many others. So Nina Romley here seems to be distancing herself from this view. She is adopting what we would call agent causation. So in agent causation, you don't want to claim that your mental states cause your intentional actions. You're going to claim that the agent herself causes the action. Like many of them espouse substance causation, for instance. So Nina Romley seems to be aligned with this idea. And what she's saying is that, look, when we act, our experience of action, isn't that my mental states are causing my action? It's not like that I experience my action. I just act, and I have this experience of being active. So she seems to be relying on a general idea of sense of agency, though she's not citing the sense of agency here. And she'll go on to say that to be phenomenally aware of doing something involves experience of oneself as being active, and doing something we experience our own spontaneity. So aside from actually causing the action, she seems to be thinking there cause our actions directly, but we also do that spontaneously. And by spontaneously, I think she means that we're free to have done that or something else. So she seems to think that a sense of agency is helping us believe in this, because she's claiming that the phenomenology of action allows us to think that we spontaneously do this. Okay, so she's not alone. Timothy O'Connor, for instance, a famous agent causationist, will claim similar stuff. So he'll say things like that the agent causationist theory is the one that best captures the phenomenology of action. So this experience we have of acting cannot be accounted for in the causal theory of action. We need agent causation to explain that. So he's on that side as well. And he's also inclined to think that agent causation is the power that allows the agent to actually act freely. So that means that the agent can have several action paths open to her at a given moment, and she can act from choosing from any of these possibilities. So he also seems to be inclined in thinking that sense of agency is better captured by the theory he favors, agent causation, but it also allows us to think that we act according to whichever possibility of action that we choose at that moment. So also seems to be inclined to think that our phenomenology of action allows us to maybe draw some conclusions about free will, or be more inclined to accept that we have free will based on how we experience our actions. So okay, I'll move a little bit further. So I was concerned about whether I was going to say too many things or use too many different concepts, so I tried to sum up my points as I go. So if you don't remember anything that I said up till now, try to remember that agent causationists are the one who claims that sense of agency is the experience of acting spontaneously. Okay, so the idea is that sense of agency supports belief in free will. Okay. Now we move to my second point. Issues about free will can be seen as issues about action control, regulative control, and guidance control. So this is more of a conceptual point. I'm relying on John Martin Fisher's distinction between guidance control and regulative control. So what he's trying to say there, and John Martin Fisher is a semi-compatibilist, he's trying to provide a conception of control that does not rely on alternative possibilities. So that's how he's coming up with the idea of guidance control. So I don't know why I'm using my hands instead of a pointer. Guidance control. So I'm using the pictures to help us get the idea. But guidance control is the idea that one acts in control of her actions when one acts according to her reasons to act. So one must be able to assess the reasons she has to act and act accordingly by properly functioning mechanisms of production of action. So that's an important point, because philosophers of action sometimes like to think about these weird examples where a neuroscientist is controlling your brain, or maybe agents implanted a chip on your brain and now you're acting as you want to or according to your reasons, but in fact it's the agent, sending out these commands in the microchip in your brain that is making you act. So to avoid this kind of monkey business, he added that. Okay, so that kind of control is supposed to be seen as opposed to regulative control. So regulative control is that idea that probably most of you are familiar with. It requires alternative possibilities. That means that everything remaining the same, the agent must have the ability to have done otherwise than she did at a certain moment. So I'm here giving you my talk, but I could be at the beach. So, no, I probably shouldn't do that, but I could have chosen to do it, right? So I had some vegetables for lunch today, but I could have had just a flan if I was really feeling like I wanted to skip lunch. So here again, I have a little image to help us follow the idea. I'm here at the present, and there are like several possibilities, and I can choose any of them. Okay, so I'm adding the idea of operative control here. So operative control is something that I want to expand a little bit on that idea from Fisher, where he says that our mechanisms that produce the action must be working properly. So here, what I'm trying to say is that, well, okay, the agent has her reasons to act, and the agent perhaps decides that she'll act. So this can be the case for either if you espouse the idea that we actually have guidance control, or that we have regulative control. Either way, you're going to have to go from your reason to act, or your decision to act, to actually performing the action. So you need to implement that decision process. And the kind of control that I want to say is concerned about this is operative control. So what I'm saying is that operative control requires the articulation of the agent's intention. You can substitute that for reason, decision, whichever you think is the final trigger for the mechanisms that will implement the action. So it requires the articulation of the agent's intention with mechanisms that implement it in the production of action, resulting in motor movement. Okay, so I think that's kind of clear, right? We're trying to see how we pass from decision to active movement. So I like this model by Ellen Freeland, and she is not concerned about this problem at all. She is concerned about skilled action. So the model she presents in her 2014 paper, They've Lost Control, is a paper about skilled action. But I think we can apply it. We can just think that we don't have just skilled action. We have novice action, we have mediocre action, and we have independent action. If we just think that action can be improved, our ability to perform it well until we reach skilled action and degrees, then we can say we have all kinds of levels of action, of skills in action. So I'm going to use her model, even though it's originally thought for skilled action. And the way in which you can say that you have different levels of skill is just by saying, well, you have different levels of automatization. So the more automatized some parts of the action production are, the more skilled you are in general, right? She will claim that as a result of practice, agents develop strategic control, selective top-down attention control, and motor control. So strategic control is that level in which we are actually deciding what we are doing. That's the level where the decisions are located. So each of these levels of control will cascade into the next. So in strategic control, she'll say that it's the kind of control that ought to be identified with our goals, plans, and strategies that the agent uses in order to guide various instantiations of motor skill. So this is the kind of control that doesn't automatize. That's the level that we usually are very conscious of. Selective top-down to have in order to pay attention to the correct thing when she's trying to perform the action. So say it's the kind of control I would not have if I was playing baseball. I like this example because I've never held a bat in my life. So if a very fast ball was coming in the direction of my face, that would be a problem, even if I was holding a bat, because I can't play the game, and I probably wouldn't know what to attend to. They say you're supposed to look at the ball. I mean, I've heard that, but I'm not sure I would be capable of doing that. So that's the kind of control that I would be at the novice level, let's say. But someone who plays baseball, for instance, knows what to pay attention to and pays attention to that. And then there's motor control, which is exactly what you can suppose by the name, right? It's constituted by the automatized motor routines that are learned through practice and training. So that goes even for when we start walking, right? We need to practice a little bit our moves before we become confident to stand up and take the first steps. I assume, I don't remember, but as the more you walk, allegedly, you become better at it, right? Okay, so moving a little bit from this model into Joshua Shepard's model, what he's saying is something that is very compatible with what Ellen Friedland is saying. Because what he's adding to this idea is that each level of control, from strategic to motor control, has both an executive and an implementation dimension. So what he's trying to say is that we do have different levels of control. Of course, we have what we might want to call higher order control and motor control. And what you'll have are comparator loops that will help you know what your intention is in each level and how that will be implemented. So of course, I'm talking about this as if agents knew that this was happening when they're acting, but of course, a lot of this is just automatized and it's done by subpersonal mechanisms, so we aren't even aware of the motor mechanisms that are in place, for instance, when we are just walking. So, okay, the idea here is that he believes that control is implemented through comparator loops. And so I said a bunch of stuff, and maybe you don't remember half of it. So just so we're clear on what one needs to remember is that there are two main types of control. One is regulative, one is guidance control. Both need to be implemented. That is, we need to go from the decision to actually moving. And implementation in operative control depends on comparator loops. Okay, so stay with me. Sense of agency is associated to these action control mechanisms. So now I'm going to talk a little bit about sense of agency and how it's associated to these notions of control and action production. So the first thing that I want to do is advance that I won't talk much about any experiments, but there are several experiments involved in discussions about sense of agency. Patrick Hogarth has some pretty important ones. So has a 2003 one with Clark, where he shows that when one moves one finger, one has estimates time in the movement in a different way than when you make someone move their finger by, for instance, putting a big magnet close to their head. So that will make your finger twitch if you know what you're doing. Don't try it at home. But when they make the subject of the experiment's finger move, then they estimate time differently than when they do it on your own, say intentionally. So there are several experiments that talk about how the sense of agency arises, what it may be connected to, and what I'm going to show here is not exactly the experiments, but mostly the conclusions. So perhaps we can talk about experiments if you have those during Q&A. But the idea is that when we started thinking about sense of agency, there were several papers that would propose that sense of agency is composed of elements, and they would propose several different elements, and there was kind of a proliferation of concepts related to sense of agency. So I think it's useful if we try to look at a more established taxonomy of the sense of agency to try to understand what we mean by this sense of agency thing, because sometimes I talk to my students about it, and they say to me, yeah, I'm not quite sure what it is that you're talking about, what the sense of agency is. Mostly I tell them, well, move your arm, and that probably, you have a sense of a phenomenal experience when you move your arm. Now, if your colleague holds your arm, then you probably won't have that same experience. So that's how I try to characterize it for the students in class. But these people are trying to be a little bit more precise. So Gallagher and Sinofitzik, I hope is how you pronounce his name. Gallagher and Sinofitzik, they agree on this division. They have a pre-reflective and a reflective dimension for sense of agency. So the pre-reflective part of sense of agency is actually the phenomenal field. The phenomenal field itself, so the sense of agency that we allegedly have when we act intentionally. And then there is the reflective dimension, which is pretty much just the judgments we make based on the sense of agency and also previous beliefs one may have about action, about oneself, and about the world. So there's this division. Some aspects are pre-reflective and some aspects are reflective. So now let's go to the comparator model. So this is very similar to what Haggard usually draws. And he will say that one has an intention to act, say an intention to pick up the bottle. And that produces a motor command. And the motor command then produces what he calls an efference copy. So the efference copy, which is a copy of the motor command, will allow one to calculate. This is all subpersonal, so I'm not saying we actually consciously calculate anything. So this will allow the person to calculate what will be the state of the organism once this motor command is carried out. So you have the motor command, you have the efference copy, and then the motor command, of course, is supposed to command the muscle movement. And then the muscle movement produces action results, say, I will pick up the bottle. And then, when I pick up the bottle, my sensory experiences, they don't end there. I get some feedback, right? I feel the bottle, I feel my fingers moving. So this sensory feedback is compared with the predictions that were made about where the organism, how the organism would be, in which position and situation it would be once it acted. So when there is a match there, sense of agency, then you have, it is supposed to allow the sense of agency to arise. Now this model is not uncontroversial. Oh well, I have to rush. So it's not uncontroversial. It's a model that some people have doubts about, for instance, Frege, but I'm gonna ask you to humor me here and accept that we won't talk about all the criticism right now. Okay, so let's go to the taxonomy. So we have here the pre-conceptual aspects and the conceptual aspects, or pre-reflective or reflective, as I was saying in the first one. So the pre-reflective aspect, I already said, is the phenomenology of action. So this is actually the sense of agency. And the conceptual aspects are the judgments we make based on that. And what that means is that one has the phenomenal experience of acting, and then one forms a conceptual representation about the effects that one has when they act, the action effects. The experience also results in beliefs about the origin of the action. The sense of agency is not also always necessary for us to draw this conclusion. So, for instance, it is said that the sense of agency helps us think or helps us believe that I acted instead of someone else. So it helps me distinguish what are my actions, what I cause in the world, and what are happenings in the world or other people's actions. So I keep track of what I'm doing. So if I step on someone's foot, I'm like, oh, well, I'm sorry. So it allows us as well to, some physics will say it allows us as well to draw conclusions about moral responsibility and so forth. But I won't talk much about that. So takeaway. I also said a bunch of stuff there. And what do you need to remember? Remember that sense of agency is associated or produced by a control mechanism, the comparator loop, that sees if one acted as one intended to act. And if we get the sensory feedback of what we were supposed to do, and it matches with what we predicted that we were going to do, right? Okay, so moving forward. What can this tell us about control and free will? I'm going to say that it doesn't offer any support for regulative control, contrary to what the philosophers in the second slide that we saw. Okay. So Paragon has this paper in which he argues that the sense of agency itself does not represent any abilities such as the ability to do otherwise, which is what I've been calling regulative control. So what he says is that this alleged sense of freedom that people say we feel supposedly encompasses a complex representation that one could have done otherwise than one did at the moment, but that's just an impure phenomenology. That's just a confusion people make because they have the sense of agency and then they mix it with their previous beliefs about the world. They already believe that they have free will, so when they have the experience of, say, as Nina Roman says, being active, then they mix that up with their belief that being active just means acting spontaneously. So they end up with what he's calling an impure phenomenology. So Paragon defends that sense of agency does not support belief in regulative control. Okay, so I want to push a little bit further. I'm going to argue that agents often act without much awareness of their intentions or beliefs, desires. We're not usually concentrating on the reasons why we're acting. We're not concentrating on what we might want to call the causes of action. So we're not usually conscious of those when we're going through our day. And even when we do attend to them, they don't really have a very particular phenomenology, if they have any, right? So the sense of agency is a phenomenal experience without a parallel in the production of action. It is a phenomenology that springs and there doesn't seem to have any other phenomenal field right before action. This seems to be the phenomenal experience that we have associated to action. So then you have the little agency, the little agent feeling very free there, going around. And what she has here is the causal relation between her mental states and the action. But this isn't something that she experiences. She doesn't experience the causal relation. And she is also not aware of the neural causes of her overt intentional actions. So she's not aware of the causes of her action, that's what I'm saying, or the causal relations between the mental states or the neural components that originate her action. So what she's concluding is, my action does not have causal antecedents, and I bring it about spontaneously. Of course, this is not what we usually go around thinking, but what I'm saying is that it allows her to conclude, well, I have this experience of just acting, and it seems like I'm acting without any previous causes making me act, so I could have done otherwise than I did. Okay, so what I want to say is that if the agent feels as if her action of doing A sprung spontaneously, that it is not as caused by an intention to A or neural activity or whatever you may think is what causes actions, she concludes that her action was spontaneously produced. Sense of agency, however, and intentional actions have causal antecedents. So one cannot claim that sense of agency provides good reason to believe in regulative control just because the experience does not represent the mechanisms that produces the sense of agency or the intentional action. Of course here, since I'm arguing specifically against Peter Brumling and O'Connor, I'm assuming that the reason that is motivating one to think about free will and that we have free will is the assumption that actions are caused. So that's why the idea of causation is so important here. And that's why I'm underlying that just because we don't experience the causes doesn't mean that they're not there. So sense of agency alone does not allow us to believe that our actions aren't caused or that they don't have causal antecedents that would force neither Brumling or O'Connor to maybe rethink the support that sense of agency provides for free will, for believing in free will. And then, what about guidance control? Is this what I'm defending? Am I defending that sense of agency supports, in fact, belief in guidance control? Well, not quite. I mean, it does partially. Guidance control articulates well with what I've been calling the operational control. So the idea of properly functioning mechanisms is already in the concept of guidance control. And all of that is compatible with the idea of the comparator root, which is what I've been associating sense of agency to. And the comparator model is an action control mechanism involved in giving rise to sense of agency. So sense of agency seems to provide good reason to believe in operative control, but not so much in guidance control. I would say it allows us to partially accept that there is some support there, just because we're accepting that operational control is part of guidance control. So I had a little objection there, which is one of the reasons why this is the part that I'm still working on this paper, and this is one of the reasons why I want to say it only offers partial control to guidance control. Partial support, guidance control, sorry. And it's just a problem of equation. It seems like one can still act acratically, even if they have operative control, and they can still have a sense of agency when they act acratically. So, say I had too many chocolates yesterday, and today I think, well, I probably shouldn't have any more chocolate today, but then we go by, I don't know, the little vending machine that they have over there, and I see a very nice chocolate and I fail in my determination to not eat any more chocolate, and I just buy myself one and have it, I'll have a sense of agency there. So it doesn't seem like if one doesn't properly have guidance control, or if one has partial guidance control, one loses sense of agency. So it doesn't seem like sense of agency is evidence that one is actually acting with guidance control or with full-blown guidance control. But that's still a work in progress. So takeaway, final conclusion I want you to keep in mind after all of this: agent causationists are wrong about what one can conclude about free will based on sense of agency. And then you have the very free agent there, feels so free, but perhaps not so much, or who knows. So what I'm actually defending here in the end is not so much of a positive argument, but more of a negative idea. And I thank you for hearing me out.
We have 9 minutes.
Okay, thank you very much for the talk. I have just an explanatory question because I was kind of confused when you, at the slide where you had your free doer who feels very free. So and we don't need the slide, I just wanted to make clear what I'm talking about. You talked there about the sensation that the person has, and you said, well, she does not feel that her action is caused, or she even feels that, so either she does not feel that it's caused, or she even feels that it's not caused. But I was confused by that, because are we talking about agent causationism still? Because an agent causationist would exactly say, well, the act of the sense of action you have is not that your action is uncaused, but that it's caused by yourself, right? So they would say, well, the agent sensation is different from what you're presenting. I was confused about that, so maybe you could help me out about that.
Yeah, the idea there with the free agent is just to show that what she doesn't have an experience of, what she doesn't seem to have a phenomenal feel of, is of the causal relation between her mental states or her neuroactivity and the action. So even if we think that the sense of agency is in fact that, right, that experience, that's not how she represents the experience. That's not, the experience doesn't particularly have this content. So sure, the agent causationist will say, well, our actions are caused, they're just caused by this substance, which is the agent. So that's why it was just to show that she doesn't have an experience of the causal relation between mental states or brain activity, that is, the causal antecedents that actually produce the action.
I just wonder whether an agent causationist would actually agree. I guess some action causationists would probably say, well, the sense of agency actually is that you feel that your action is caused by yourself. That is the sense of agency you have. So I wonder whether there is a dispute about the actual phenomenology going on.
Yeah, but that would work for me, right? Yeah, sure, you have, this is the experience of causing my action, but not of my belief causing my movement, my belief causing my action. So what I'm trying to claim is that the sense of agency does not have this content of having prior mental causes actually triggering the action. So sure, it could be a feeling of myself causing the action. So sure, my sense of agency, let's understand it as, say, Nina Roman might actually like that idea. She would say, oh yeah, the sense of agency is just the experience of myself causing the action. Yeah, but myself, not my mental states. So what I was trying to say is that the free agent, she might know that she has, I don't know, a desire for chocolate, but she has no feeling, no experience, no sense of the causal relation between that desire and the production of the action. That
I mean, I still wonder, I mean, that's the point, I still wonder whether the agent causations would not just disagree, but I'm not sure.
that one doesn't have that feeling of the causal relation.
Yeah, I mean, I guess maybe there are agent causations which is, well, that's the sense of agency we actually have. My sense of agency tells me, my phenomenology tells me that it's my mental states which cause me to act.
But then you wouldn't be an agent causationist because your mental states can't cause you to act if you're an agent causationist. It's you who cause the action.
All right, okay. Okay.
What I'm more worried about here is that it's a good thing that she doesn't have that feeling that it is her neural or mental states that are causing her action, because she would be wrong.
She would be wrong?
She would be wrong. I mean, are we assuming a direct, efficient causality between neural states and actions?
Well, I mean, we could, we also could not. I mean, that's not how things are actually implemented in the neuro aspect of the production of the action. Isn't really my main concern. I mean, sure, I'm assuming that some neuroactivity is happening, or if the embodied cognition, people want to say there's some more global process that the organism is implementing, right? We could say that, and we would still have I think the same problem, because you would still have previous states. They might be mental, they might be neuro, they might be something else if we want to go into the embodied cognition framework. But there's still a previous cause which allegedly is producing the action. And that's what the agent causationist is disagreeing with. The agent causationist wants to propose a different kind of causation, substance causation. So what the agent causationists like Ada Romney or Timothy O'Connor are saying is that there is a metaphysical difference between regular causation, like my dropping this paper and it falling, and what agents do. Because what agents do is a special kind of causation. And what I'm taking, what I want to disagree with here isn't even the general theory. I just want to disagree. Do I do disagree with that? What I want to disagree with is just that this experience, the phenomenal experience of what we produce the action, could be used as evidence for this theory. And I'm saying, well, it doesn't seem like it. And I'm also saying that it doesn't seem like it adds much to the other theory either. So it's mostly a negative point.
I see. Thank you.
Less.
Yeah, it's a comment actually. It goes in the same direction that you were going. And the idea is that I can, depending on how I am trained, on what I learn, how I interact with people, I can identify my feelings and sensations, either as caused by my mental states or not. And I think this would depend more on how I have learned to do that than on what I actually feel.
Yeah, I think what you're indicating is that the feeling, the sense of agency is super thin. It's not something with a very clear content. And we end up interpreting it in several ways. So they're making clearly some assumptions based on how they interpret the sense of agency and what it might be or what content it might have. And that could be a troubling direction to go, because because we would end up with what Paragon is calling an impure phenomenology, where you're mixing the fact that you have a phenomenal experience and other beliefs that you have, other stuff you already think is the case in the world. So probably, I think you're going in that direction. And I do agree, yeah, I do agree that when we have this kind of phenomenology, which is sometimes even difficult to put your finger on and notice and say, oh wait, yeah, I know what you're talking about, this sense of agency, okay. So sometimes people have trouble even with that. It's super hard to start claiming, well, what the sense of agency actually means or its content. It seems like you're adding too much. So yeah, I would agree. And I think that Sinophysic and Gallagher are doing us a favor by splitting what we can call the actual phenomenology and all the judgments we make based on that.
Thank you.